So if you're ready to win, then please help me in welcoming Dr. Nawaz Habib.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Just going to get a little set up here. So I'm going to follow in Sachin's footsteps. He said something interesting. He said that laughing is good for your immune system. I'm going to try to make you laugh, but even if it's not funny, I'm going to ask that you laugh just because it's good for you. All right. There we go. I think we're good. All right. So thank you all for attending today, for being here to hear my story. One of the things that Sachin said that I want to just take a little bit more and go into a little bit more is, how many people here said that they believe that their body can heal? Amazing. Because there's a really great saying, and something that I live my life by, is whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right. If you believe you can do something, then you can do it. And if you believe that you can't, then you absolutely can't, because you've already limited yourself. You've already put a ceiling as to how far you can go. And that's something that I've not done anymore. I've eliminated that ceiling that I used to have. There it is. So what we're going to talk about today is addressing the root cause of autoimmunity, the top 3 ways that we can address the root cause, what actually is causing the autoimmune condition to occur, whether it's in you, in somebody you love, in a friend, family member, it doesn't matter. What can you do to address that? I want you to imagine for a moment standing in a room in front of about 1,500 people. Okay? You have faculty behind you, your colleagues standing right in front of you, sitting in front of you, excuse me, and all of their family and friends packing an entire banquet hall. And that's my story, because I started doing that, standing in front of 1,500 people as the valedictorian of my chiropractic class. And I felt like an imposter. I felt like I shouldn't be there, because I was standing up there weighing 250 pounds, dealing with my own blood pressure, my own blood sugar issues, dealing with IBS. And every single one of these people in this picture are taking medication for some sort of autoimmune condition. These are all my loved ones, except for my wife, who's in the back. And each one of these people mean a lot to me, but I couldn't help them. I didn't know how. And I decided that I was going to do something about that. I decided that I was going to make a change. First, I was going to change my life, and then I was going to help change the lives of everybody that I love. I felt like I was in the woods when this initially started. I felt like I didn't know where I was going. It was dark. Just like a lot of you, I imagine you feel like you've tried everything. You've gone to hundreds of doctor's appointments. You don't know what to do next, how to address this from a different perspective, because the way that the conventional system works right now, it's not allowing you to live life the way you want to. So just like me, you're in that same position. I was lucky enough to meet a colleague of mine in a very chance location, in a very chance circumstance, where I was working as a chiropractor in an office not too far from here, just around the corner in Mississauga here. And somebody's misfortune became my fortune, because a gentleman walked into the office that I was working at and said that his wife was in a car accident, she needed chiropractic care, that he was a chiropractor himself, but he doesn't practice hands-on chiropractic anymore. And I said, well, what else does a chiropractor do? What do you do? And he said, I practice functional medicine. I said, what's that? I'm standing here weighing 250 pounds, not knowing what it is, but I was open to the possibility of something new, something amazing for me to learn. Maybe this was the answer for me to help my family and my loved ones. That gentleman turned out to be this gentleman right here, Sachin Patel. And what he did was he took me under his wing and introduced me to the idea of functional medicine, introduced me to the concepts that are necessary to help to produce health as opposed to eliminate disease. Because disease is the absence of health. So if we can create health, disease tends to disappear. And by meeting him, I lost a bunch of weight. I lost about 75 pounds. My blood pressure went down. I was almost on blood pressure medication from my medical doctors prior to all of this. My blood sugar levels were borderline diabetic. I was in my 20s, and I was borderline diabetic. I had IBS. I had so many things going on in my own life, and I felt like I couldn't help myself or I couldn't help anybody else. But this man showed up and gave me that hope. And that's what I'm here to do for you today. I'm here to give you that hope. And for those of you that are ready to take action, today is going to be that day for you. Okay? Why do I do this? I want to help my family, and I also want to help my loved ones. I have an amazing daughter. Obviously not here today because she would be running around driving me crazy. Daddy, daddy. But this is why I do what I do, because I didn't want my kid and my family to go through what I'm going through. How many people here have kids? I know a couple of you brought them. That's awesome. Thank you for bringing them. How many people here are somebody's kid? How amazing would it have been if your parents could have taught you this? How amazing would it have been? How amazing would it have felt if your parents were able to give you this knowledge so that you didn't have to deal with these issues that you're currently dealing with? Take this information, run with it. Don't allow those future generations to deal with what you're dealing with. What we're going to talk about today is the top 3 ways to address autoimmunity, and then we're going to get into a special offer that I have for all of you for being here today. How many people here have been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition? How many people have a loved one that's been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that's here? All right. The incidence of infectious disease caused by some sort of infectious agent, is decreasing rapidly. It's been decreasing for decades. But at the same time, in the exact same amount of time, 1950 to 2000 on this chart, autoimmune condition diagnoses are skyrocketing. Why? What's causing that? Can you imagine? We don't have to worry about tuberculosis and mumps anymore, but we are worried about type 1 diabetes, Hashimoto's, and Crohn's. Why? What's actually changed? Lifestyle. We're going to talk a lot about that. Food, lifestyle, all of those things are included. So let's talk about the 3 factors that are necessary in making an autoimmune condition occur. And anybody that has an autoimmune condition, all 3 of these factors need to be present. The first is genetics. Feel free to take notes. Feel free to take pictures if you want to take pictures. I want to share this information with everybody, okay? So the top 3 things that need to be changed are the 3 factors that are involved in the production of an autoimmune condition are genetics, immune cell regulation, and some sort of environmental trigger. These 3 things need to occur. So let's talk about each one of these. Genetics, for example, we all may have some sort of genetic predisposition. Anybody who has an autoimmune condition has some sort of gene that predisposes them to it. It's like having a gun. Does that gun being present mean that you're going to be shot? No. Exactly. So do genetics dictate your fate? Does a gun dictate that a gunshot is going to take place? No. Okay, so genetics are not the only reason. There's 3 pieces of the puzzle here. So piece 1, genetics. You may have a genetic predisposition to an autoimmune condition, and some people may even have that genetic predisposition without knowing it. I have a question. Who has your genes? Your kids? Your parents, your kids, your family? Exactly. Your kids have your genes. So what you pass on to them is not only genetic, but you want to also pass on that environmental information. You want to pass on things to make sure that they don't activate those specific autoimmune containing genes. So what are the other 2 pieces? Because that gun gets passed along, what's the next step? Step 2 is the immune cell regulation. This is the bullet. This is where people have some sort of environmental vitamin-based deficiency, neurological deficiency. Something's just not working really well. Vitamin D is low. Vagus nerve is not functioning well. How many people here have heard of leaky gut syndrome? Yeah, pretty much everybody. Literally, we started doing these talks, I wanted to say like 3-4 years ago, and nobody knew. It's amazing, right? Now we have all of this amazing information. So What can we do with that information? Now we can identify what leaky gut is actually causing. So these are the gun and the bullet. Step 3 is somebody to actually pull the trigger. Some sort of action needs to occur, and that's the environmental triggers. That's food, potentially. That's stress of some sort. It could be emotional stress. It could be psychological stress. It could be a divorce. It could be childbirth. All of these things are stressors, right? And if we become stressed, our immune cells take a bit of a hit. And given the fact that we have a gun and we have a bullet, it doesn't take much to pull that trigger. All 3 things need to take place. Now, in the sequence of these events occurring, we tend to go in this sequence. We start as healthy individuals. Okay? We tend to start as very healthy children, grow up, and then something occurs. We live in an environment for 20, 30 years, and the most common scenario that we see is some sort of environmental trigger that occurs around the 20 to 40 age range. Okay? It can be a tough breakup. It can be being exposed to a parasite or bacterial overgrowth or something along those lines. Or childbirth, again, one of the biggest stressors. That trigger causes your immune system to become activated and start to attack your own cells. And so that's where these issues start to come up. But you start not feeling symptoms. Issues start to arise, but you're not feeling it yet. Your body has yet to really realize that a problem has occurred, that a problem is taking place. And once we get to a point where we start to feel these symptoms, it's already been some time for this process to begin occurring. This is when we start to go seeing the doctor. And they say, oh, no big deal. I'll give you this anti-inflammatory medication, Advil, methotrexate, whatever. And it takes time because they have to do blood work. And they have to do this test. And they have to do that test. Until they can finally say, okay, your rheumatoid factor is high, you have RA. Okay? You have this disease, you have that disease. But they're waiting to be able to put a label on you. And the problem is, from this point till the point where a dynamic symptom is made into a diagnosis is usually 7 years. That is a long time. Because what happens is by the time you get diagnosed, you're already in the degeneration, deformation phase. This is late. How did everybody get here today? Usually by car? Uber? How many people here plugged in the address Huron Park Recreation Center into their Google Maps, GPS, whatever? Amazing. This is how you got here today. What you needed to do was know where you are. When you picked up your phone, your GPS knew you were at home or wherever you were, hotel. And then you needed to know where you wanted to go. And what did Google do? Google gave you the fastest, safest route to get from there to here. And you trusted that. You trusted Google to give you those directions, even though sometimes they're completely wrong. But you trusted that. We can do that with your health. What you need to know is where you want to go. Begin with the end in mind. What do you want to feel? What do you want to experience? Do you want to live a happy, healthy life where you can run after your kids without pain? Where you don't have problems with energy getting up in the morning? How do you want to feel? Know that. Become very, very confident with what it is that you want to experience. How you want to live. And then know where you are right now. Point out the things that are problems for you right now. And then plug it into a system that works that's going to show you how to get there. The same way you do for your GPS or Google Maps. I want to know why everybody's here today. I want to ask questions. I want to have people raise hands. Tell me if you've been diagnosed with something, if there's an issue with energy. Tell me. Let's chat. Yes. Hypothyroidism. Rose has hypothyroidism. Awesome. Most common reason for hypothyroidism? Autoimmunity, Hashimoto's. Yes? Hashimoto's, exactly. Very common. Anybody else?
Fibromyalgia, and I don't believe the diagnosis.
Fibromyalgia is the worst diagnosis in the world because it doesn't tell you anything.
Well, my son has a mental health. I just want to see that how the mental is very down.
Yeah, absolutely. Mental health issues are very strongly linked to autoimmunity. This is something we're absolutely going to speak to. Absolutely, yes. There's somebody else. Yes? Rheumatoid arthritis. MS. AIH. Elaborate.
We're not sure yet. I'm just being diagnosed.
You're just waiting for that blood work to come back to tell you exactly what it is. You're waiting for that label. You're here in time. Yes?
I have a loved one who has lupus.
Lupus. How many different autoimmune conditions are there out there? What causes them all? We know that there's 3 factors that are involved in that. They're all autoimmune. Are they connected? Is there potentially one root cause for all of this? The answer is yes. It's chronic inflammation. Everybody who's been diagnosed with a condition, a chronic autoimmune condition, has some sort of chronic inflammation. We have to figure out where that's starting. If you've been diagnosed with something from your conventional medical doctor, they're often looking for a label or something that they see on the surface from that basic blood work panel or rheumatoid factor, or still trying to look for what it is like they are in Farah's case. They're trying to put a label on it so that then they know what medication to pair with it. Do I put methotrexate? Do I put them on Humira? Do I give them corticosteroids? What do I got to do? But they have to put a label on it. Problem is, what's causing it? They're not looking for what's causing it. They're not looking for the root cause behind the condition. We need to look for what that is. Is it diet, toxic relationships, poor self-image, inflammation, environment, toxicity? All of these things lead to chronic inflammatory processes within our body that then lead us to have a diagnosis show up. 7 years before you were diagnosed, something happened. Something triggered it. And so we're going to help you figure out what that is and address it. We manage our inflammation using a specific system. And that system requires balance. It's called the autonomic nervous system. How many people here are thinking about beating their heart right now? Anyone? No? How many people are thinking of beating their heart right now? Do you consciously have to beat your heart? No? How about the 500 processes that your liver is functioning right now? Are you thinking about those? No? What about digestion? No? We've evolved to have an automatic process occur in our body. Something that manages how well we are feeling, manages the automatic processes that need to occur within our body. The autonomic nervous system manages this system. The autonomic nervous system is made up of 2 parts. We have a sympathetic division, which manages the fight or flight response, and then we're talking about the next one in a moment. So I want you to imagine a dog runs into you right now and starts chasing somebody. What's going to happen to that person? Your heart's going to start racing. So your heart starts racing, beating really, really fast if you're being chased. You're scared for your life. What else is going to start happening? Are you going to breathe nice and deep? No, shallow breathing. Okay? What's going to happen? Are you going to start digesting food?
No.
Are you going to start breaking down that mushroom in the coffee? Probably not. Right? Because our body is smart. We are looking for survival. When this mechanism is working, we are looking to survive. And we need it. It's necessary. And what it does is it shuts down certain processes in our body and activates certain other processes in our body. The funniest one is that it actually will activate your bladder, which is why people pee their pants when they're scared. But the opposite of this is the parasympathetic side, the rest, digest, and recovery side. That system allows us to get into a state of recovery, allows us to manage inflammation, which is the root cause of autoimmune conditions. So this system, does the complete opposite. I want to take a moment and have everybody, once you've finished taking pictures, I want to have everybody put their stuff down for a moment, close your eyes, and I want you to take a deep breath in and out. I'm going to do that one more time. You can open your eyes. 3 deep breaths. Who here feels calmer? Who here feels more relaxed after 3 deep breaths? You know what's just happened? Is you've shifted your body from here to here. This is a scale. It's a rolling scale. What you've done is move from a stress state into a relaxed state. You feel more relaxed when you start to breathe correctly. We're going to talk about that. But the key thing to look at in this picture is that there is one single nerve that activates and innervates the vast majority of these organs with the parasympathetic signal. Okay? That parasympathetic signal helps to reduce inflammation levels, and that single nerve is very, very important in making sure that those things work. So, what if we are stressed all the time? I love this comic because it shows big guy over here. Well, Jerry, maybe it's time to start training your lower body. Man with chicken legs over here. What you focus on grows. Jerry focused on his upper body. How many people here are stressed all the time? How many people feel like the weight of the world is on them often? That's stress. How many people know about any bacterial, viral, parasitic stressors that are going on in their gut? That's stress. If you've been tested, you know. Certain people here have been tested already. Some will find out very soon. If you focus on being stressed, if you're constantly feeling like you're stressed, and there's constant stressors in your body, then you're training the sympathetic side of the nervous system. You're training the fight or flight side. But if you learn to train the parasympathetic side, you're going to be able to relax, recover, and improve that function. And that's why I wrote my book. That one nerve is called the vagus nerve. And I just wrote a book, and it's coming out April 2nd in bookstores everywhere. You can also go to vagusnervebook.com and sign up for updates, email updates. Vegas is spelled V-A-G-U-S, not Las Vegas. My favorite line, I actually feel like I should have written it in the book, but what happens in Vegas really does not stay in Vegas. If you're talking about this. So, who here wants to learn how to activate their vagus nerve and help to reduce their autoimmune disease issues from the root cause? So the top 3 ways to address autoimmunity from the root cause are: number 1, to address your circadian biology. What's that? What is circadian biology? Number 2, your gut health. And number 3 is your community. Let's get into it. Number 1, addressing your circadian biology. Who here had an amazing sleep last night? I know I did. Yeah? Awesome. Who here sleeps great every night? That's awesome. If you sleep well, I'm very happy for you, because sleep is one of the most disturbed and one of the most missed things in our health. And this is where recovery occurs, is during sleep. If you have trouble falling or staying asleep, that means that you have trouble getting into a recovery state. This is important to remember. What's the number 1 best way to make sure that you get a good night's sleep? Sorry? Routine is great. I love that. Anybody? Yes?
Relax. Relaxation before.
I love it. That's a very good one. Relaxation before. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Yes?
No light.
No light. Let's talk a little bit more about that one, but go ahead. Stay away from your phone. You all are reading my mind. This is nice. The best way to do this is go outside in the middle of the day. And it's all linked to what we're talking about. Because if we go outside in the middle of the day, we actually send a signal to our brains that that is the middle of the day. And then that signal gets processed, and 8 hours after that middle of the day, our body secretes melatonin, which allows us to get into a relaxed state and allows us to fall asleep. Melatonin is the most important hormone for your immune system function. If you don't have enough melatonin secreted, you're not going to be relaxed enough to fall asleep, and you're not going to recover, and your autoimmunity is going to become something more than you want it to be. But that needs to occur. You need to be able to tell yourself that it's the middle of the day when it is the middle of the day. Evolutionarily, did we all walk around with a cell phone? Do you remember a caveman with a cell phone? Probably had stones to chuck at stuff. It's about as close as they got. Did they watch TV from 8 to 10 at night? No. Right? What was the first thing when they woke up early in the morning? And they usually woke up with the sun, I might add. What did they do?
Move.
They hunted and gathered. They moved. They went out. They told themselves that, hey, amber light is rising. I might as well go outside and start catching some stuff because I need to survive. And so they went out early in the day and started getting nice amber lighting into their eyes. And then they'd come back and bring stuff back to the camp or wherever, the cave, wherever they were. And by the middle of the day, they would take a bit of a rest, but they would stay outside in the middle of the day. And that sun would tell them the time of day. And then they would go out, light a fire, cook their dinner, sit and watch the sunset. And they knew what time of day it was. They didn't have their watches on. They didn't have their cell phones out saying, oh, it's 8:30. I should go watch Friends right now. Right? They didn't have that. They had the sun. And they had evolutionarily followed the sun. But what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning right now? Email, cell phone, TV.
Phone salutation.
I love that phone salutation, so good. That's awesome. I'm so glad you do that. Exercise. Get up, start moving a little bit. I'm not saying go and lift 400 pounds. Start moving your body. Don't rely on that electronic signal to tell you everything that's going on in the world. Because what happens is you go and you pull out your phone, and what kind of light is your phone telling you? What kind of light is coming out of your phone? You wake up and you're already telling yourself it's the middle of the day. Haven't you already failed? And then why do you get tired 8 hours after you wake up? Because your cortisol's crashing. And you need a mid-afternoon snack at 3 p.m. Get outside as much as you possibly can, even in the wintertime. I know we live in Canada. Sorry. Go outside. Even just getting a little bit of light into your eyes is going to make a huge difference. And guess what that sun also does for you? It activates your vitamin D, which is the most important vitamin in the function of your immune system, in balancing your Th1 and Th2 cells. Get outside in the sun. It's going to make the biggest difference in your life. Don't put on the phone in the morning. Try not to use it in the middle of the day and night if you can avoid it. If you can't, there are tools that you can use to limit blue light exposure. This is amber lenses that you can get off of Amazon for like $16. They're not expensive. If you're going to watch TV at night, you want to go watch a movie, you want to be on your cell phone, get some sort of tool that's going to help you. So amber lenses are a great tool. There's multiple different kinds that you can order on Amazon or on Bulletproof. Yes?
Just wondering about the vitamin D absorption. If your skin's not exposed, are you still absorbing it? If, let's say, it's winter and there's like a bit of your cheeks showing.
Where do you absorb vitamin D?
I thought it was through your skin.
You absorb vitamin D through your gut. You activate vitamin D with the sun. And so yes, your activation of vitamin D will likely go down during the wintertime because you are covered up. So what you can try to do is make a point of going outside where it's possible when it gets to like -2 and just jump outside for a couple minutes when the sun is out and be back inside. That said, we live in Canada, we know if you do get a little bit of sun exposure, even if it is just cheeks, you're going to get something going on there. You're going to do that. But supplementing with vitamin D in the wintertime is the best way to make sure that you do have some. But you're also supplementing with inactive vitamin D, so activating it is key. As much as you can, just get your eyes in the sun, it'll make a difference for sure. That said, I'm going to ask for questions to be deferred right to the end, just so we can get through this in a good time. And then any questions that you have, feel free, I'll be here to answer them at the end, okay? So blue blocking sunglasses are a great way to reduce blue light exposure, okay? So I want to talk about a patient of ours. This was Jasmine. She was 42 years old. She came in, mother of 2, dealing with a lot of stress. And she had a lot of trouble falling asleep. She had gone to see naturopaths. She had gone to see medical doctors. She had been stressed, trying to figure out why these doctors couldn't fix her sleep. She had seen so many different people. She was questioning, would this even work for her when she came in to see us. And we did a test to determine what was going on with her cortisol rhythm. And her cortisol rhythm tells us about how strong her stress hormones were throughout the day. That's a rhythm. It's a 24-hour pattern for what's going on with your cortisol. And what we should see is that red line should be between the 2 black lines here, the high and low range limit. It should be between them. What do you see here? Is her cortisol, the red line, significantly above where it should be pretty much throughout the entire day? She wakes up with high cortisol. Her cortisol in the morning is at actually pretty good level. But then in the afternoon, her cortisol spikes. And it stays high as the day goes on. And we were trying to figure out what was going on with her during that time. Because it wasn't a supplement. She wasn't missing vitamin D that was causing this. Something else was going wrong. And the reason was that she was stressed when she got home with her kids, having to deal with cooking and cleaning and making sure that things were supported at home. And that led to her thinking about financial stress at night because she was in financial stress. And so she couldn't fall asleep. And so what we did was we taught her how to address those stressors and manage those stressors rather than give her melatonin. And she started sleeping better. So as you can see here, she was dealing with significantly high levels of cortisol. Now, one really, really important factor here is cortisol shuts down your immune system. And so not only was her cortisol level high shutting down her immune system, she couldn't get to sleep and she wasn't recovering. And her immune system wasn't being fixed overnight. She was producing almost 3 times the amount of cortisol that she should have been on a 24-hour period. You think her immune system was working? When a kid gets sick, I know I had to deal with this just recently. My daughter got sick and she was not feeling well. We had to keep her home from school. And she took 3 naps that day. Why do you think that is?
Her body, recovery.
Recovery. When we get sick, our body is automatically trying to tell us, rest. Be calm. I'm going to say this a few times today. When in doubt, watch what a baby does. That's nature. We've trained our belief system completely the opposite. Watch what a baby does. When they get sick, watch what they do. When they're tired, watch what they do. When a baby gets wired, that's another thing entirely. When a baby gets tired, do they put their head down and say, I'm done? They're done. When they get wired, we're not going to get into that, to talk about my daughter's craziness for hours. The next thing you can do, and this is going to relate very strongly to relaxation that we talked about earlier, is Are you breathing correctly? So we did a breath earlier. I'm going to ask everybody to do that again. I'm going to ask you all to just put stuff down. I want you to have 2 hands for this, okay? I want you to sit up a little bit, and I want you to put one hand on your chest, and I want you to put one hand on your belly. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to pay attention and take a deep breath. And I want you to pay attention to which hand is moving as you breathe. One more breath. Perfect. You can open your eyes. How many people's bottom hand was moving? That's awesome. How many people's top hand was moving? Those people whose top hand is moving, you're not breathing correctly. Okay? You've trained yourself to breathe with your chest. What's our breathing muscle? The diaphragm. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. But the diaphragm is the one that controls the opening and closing of your lungs, the expansion of the lungs. Where is the diaphragm located? Right at the bottom of the rib cage. And when the diaphragm contracts and allows air into the chest, where should the diaphragm go? Down. What does that do to everything below it? Pushes it out and in every direction possible. That's why your bottom hand should be moving when you're taking a deep breath. Okay? When we inhale, air comes into the lungs and our belly should protrude, as opposed to the opposite, where so many of us, how many people here have tight traps? Tight muscles in their neck and upper back and all that stuff? You're more than likely, while not deep breathing incorrectly as well. You're probably using your accessory breathing muscles, your traps, your scalenes, your rhomboids, all of your intercostal muscles, excuse me. It's been a little while since I've adjusted anybody. All of those muscles, when they get aggravated and overworked, your accessory breathing muscles get tight because you're not using your diaphragm as often as you should be. This is an awesome video I want to show you. Just watch what's going on here, okay? This is a CT side angle, so somebody standing like this, okay? That's their belly, that's their diaphragm, this is the liver, kidney, intestines are right below, that's the lungs right there at the top. I want you to keep an eye out and see what happens. I'm going to play it a couple times. What do you see? So the diaphragm is moving up and down, opening up the lungs, but at the same time, it's pumping everything below it. It's pumping the liver, it's moving the liver, it's pumping the intestines, the kidneys, it's getting movement occurring below. So here's a question. If you're not breathing with your diaphragm, are you really working with good working digestive organs? Are you really working them properly? You're not. The diaphragm is not just the breathing muscle, it's also the movement of recovery and life muscle. That's why it's so important that you breathe correctly before you go to sleep. And relax before you go to sleep. So one of the best things you can do, not only go outside in the middle of the day, but when you get back to your bed, take a few deep breaths. Put your phone away. Relax. Close your eyes. Take 10 deep breaths. Meditate if you can. Do something to get yourself into a recovery, rest, digest state so that your body can do the job that it needs to do when you are asleep. And allow yourself to sleep properly. And there's a way to actually check to see how well you are sleeping and how well your vagus nerve is functioning while you're sleeping. It's called heart rate variability. And this is actually my scan from a couple weeks ago. It's one of my better nights. But that came from this ring right here that I'm tracking. I'm tracking my sleep. I'm tracking my heart rate variability while I sleep at night. It's called the Oura ring, O-U-R-A. And what it does is it tracks heart rate variability. Heart rate variability is a direct measure of vagus nerve function. The higher your heart rate variability, the healthier your vagus nerve, the healthier your recovery. So this is a great way to track. If you want to talk about this, come chat with me after. The number 2 way to address autoimmunity. Address your gut health. When I talk about gut health, I'm not just talking about food. Food is one piece of the puzzle. There's diet and there's digestion. And that's why we have a couple of sayings in our office. We say, you are what you eat, digest, absorb, and don't eliminate. It's not just what you eat. You actually have to get those nutrients in. And why does gut health matter so much? Well, about 70% of your immune cells by volume are located in the lining of your gut. Your white blood cells, the cells that produce antibodies, are located, vast majority, in your gut. That's where these things start. That's where the environmental factors tend to occur. That's where leaky gut comes into play. We're going to talk about those things. How many people here are guilty of eating at their desk? Or eating in front of their computer, or eating in front of their TV, or eating in their car, or eating in a stress situation? I have a question. I want you to think back to our sympathetic versus parasympathetic, fight or flight versus rest or digest. If you eat when you're stressed, will you digest that food? Not correctly. Are you going to get the nutrients out of that food? Probably not. So you can eat the cleanest, greenest, organic diet possible, but if you're eating under stress, you're not getting those nutrients. So it's not just what you eat, it's where you eat. It's how you eat. Those things matter. I'm going to give you a great tip. This is something we tell every single one of our patients. Write this down. Choose, chew, chill, cherish. Choose. You're going to choose the right food. Choose what works for you. By the way, every single one of us has our own diet. There isn't a single diet that's best for everybody. Let's get past that. Cool. Choose the right diet for you. We can help you figure out what that is. Chew your food. Chew your food. Why do you chew your food?
Because digestion starts in the mouth.
Perfect. Because digestion starts in the mouth. Where else do you have teeth? I don't have any in my stomach. Anyone here? Do you have teeth in your stomach? Where are your teeth? Your teeth are in your mouth, right? Right? That's where we're supposed to chew. We don't eat through our nose. Should we breathe through our mouth? Probably not. We have hairs in our nose to filter out the air. So this is our eating tube. This is our breathing tube. This is our backup breathing tube, if this one's plugged. But we start to chew, and we start digestion, and we start the entire process. Actually, prior to that, when we think about it, when we choose that food, we've started digesting it already. But then we actually physically start the process of digestion by chewing our food. Why is it important to chew your food? Perfect. Breaking it down into pieces so that you can then release enzymes. So here's the process. You take in food, you chew it down, you break it down into tiny little morsels. Those tiny little morsels go into your taste buds in your tongue and in your cheeks. And those taste buds send a signal to your brain saying, hey, this is a sweet bite. This is a fatty bite. This is a protein-filled bite. This is a salty bite. I need to produce the right enzyme so that I can break down these specific foods. And then it sends a signal down through the vagus nerve to your stomach, small intestine, pancreas, large intestine, liver, gallbladder, and every other organ you can think of that's involved in digestion in order to produce the right enzymes, in order to produce hydrochloric acid in the stomach and intrinsic factor in the stomach to help with B12 production. Because we physically break our food down in our mouth, we signal to everything else that once it's going to get down there, you need to do your job right away. We need to secrete protease and lipase and amylase and hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor to make these things work. so that we can digest and absorb the right foods, nutrients, and eliminate what we don't need. If we don't chew our food, that entire process does not work. So choose, chew, chill, eat in a relaxed state, and then cherish. Just be grateful for that food. Be grateful for the opportunity to have a good, clean meal in front of you. Be grateful for the people that you have around you. Be grateful for something when you're sitting there eating, because it makes that food taste that much better. If you don't do that, you're not going to get nutrients into your body. And then you're going to end up like Julian here. Julian, 63 years old, IT guy, came into our office. He was dealing with type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, and vitiligo, autoimmune skin condition for the melanocytes. Okay? And Julian had issues with time. He had stress in getting to his job in Brampton and then getting back home in he had to get back to home in the middle of Toronto, in a very short period of time, because he had responsibilities at his mosque that he had to be at pretty much 6 nights a week. And so his time was a factor, and so he made his choices of his food based on that time factor. He was also unsure if he could really commit the time to making the change and coming in to see us, but he made that a priority. And something that we did for him was we allowed him to see us through video calls. So in the middle of the day, we did a Zoom video call with him and made sure that he got the information that he needed, rather than having to come into the office and take extra time out of his day. But what we found was that Julian was missing a bunch of really, really important nutrients, which were not allowing him to produce energy. He was very, very tired all the time. And he was missing a lot of the nutrients that are necessary to produce energy in your body. Who here knows what mitochondria is? A few of us. Mitochondria are the energy power centers of each cell. We have between 1,000 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell of our body except for red blood cells. Every single cell in our body needs to produce energy so that it can do its job. And what was happening in Julian's case was the nutrients, the micronutrients and macronutrients that were necessary for him to be able to do that were missing. He wasn't digesting and absorbing those nutrients because he was eating in a rush and he was stressed. And so what happened was, on his urinary organic acid test, which is this test, it showed us that he was having trouble doing so, and that explained biochemically why his energy level was so low. Why he had dark bags under his eyes. Why he was so tired every morning when he woke up and he had to drive out to Brampton to a job that he really didn't like that much, drive back, and then run out to go to mosque for his responsibilities 6 days a week. We worked with him for 3 months, and his blood sugar went from 10 or 12 in the morning to about a 6 or 7 in 3 months. And his A1C markers came down by about 2.0 in 3 months, which is pretty spectacular. On top of that, his vitiligo was spreading. It's actually stabilized and stopped spreading at this point, which is awesome. So once we figured out what was happening with his micronutrients, we were able to address it with the right supplementation, but also addressing why these things were happening. His time was a big issue for him. So he started to work from home a few days a week, which made a huge difference for his time. These are things that people can do to address their lifestyle and why they make the choices that they do without needing to spend money to do it. You can't out-supplement running around in a bad diet. That said, it's not always your fault. The way that the industry is right now, in 1950, it took 68 days to grow that chicken, and in 2008, it took 47 days to grow that one. This is why the choose part is so important. Choose your food wisely. It becomes you. Next best thing to do is add some mushrooms to your diet. Mushrooms are a great way to get some really, really important software upgrades in your body, okay? And those of you who had coffee or tea today at the back had the spores or the flowering body of Ganoderma lucidum, reishi mushroom, which has been shown in more than 3,000 research studies to have significant effects on balancing the immune system. You want to choose something that's going to help with your immune system? Add mushrooms to your diet. Mushrooms are the immune system, the nervous system, the digestive system for the entire planet. Mushrooms have an entire network underneath them called mycelium that span the entire planet, literally connecting from stepping on the grass over here to the forest on the other side of the world. It's why the forest knows where you are. When you step on it, it knows where you are. It's the mycelium that's doing that. These mushrooms decompose and give life back to dying trees and dying plants. They have billions of years of information inside them that we can harness if we use them correctly. And what's an easy way to do that? Just throw it in your coffee. Put it in your morning tea. Figure out a way to add something that's going to be helpful for you into your life in an easy way. So this is a great way to do that. Reishi mushroom has been shown to have all of these positive effects, including, I'm just going to point out the few that are most important here, strengthening your immune system, preventing allergic reactions and detoxifying the body, and boosting energy levels. It also reduces the risk of chronic disease and premature aging. And I'll tell you honestly, I feel so much better when I do have my reishi mushroom. I take spores, and sometimes I'll have a coffee or a tea. I'm not a huge coffee drinker, but I make sure that I get some sort of mushroom spore into my body as much as I possibly can. And these are easy packets that you can travel with, and it's going to help support your brain. It'll help with energy levels, it'll help you think. Okay? We had a patient with Hashimoto's who started using the black coffee, and in a week her chronic ankle pain and swelling had decreased, and she had lost 5 pounds. Also had more energy, was sleeping better, and she gave it to a colleague who noticed a difference after a single cup. And I'd love to ask Fawn, because she came to me and said this morning that she had been trying the coffee for 1 week after coming to Sachin's talk last week, and noticed a huge difference in terms of her chronic pain.
Being able to sleep for longer periods of time and way less pain. And I've had chronic pain for a very long time.
And in about 7 days of having the King coffee, she noticed a huge change.
Marijuana.
We'll talk about CBD on another time. I'm not legally allowed to say that word.
I can.
I know you can. It's funny, you can, but a doctor of chiropractic can't. And this is also going to have a huge effect on your gut bacteria, because it helps to balance your immune system by addressing the balance of your immune system, or by the balance of your gut bacteria, excuse me. So we have about 100 billion bacterial cells, 100 trillion bacterial cells in our large intestine alone. And we only have about 70 trillion human cells in our body. There's more bacteria in our large intestine than there is in our entire body. You think they have a bit of a role to play in our health? Maybe a little one. We also have only 23... Who's in control? This is the question that we have. We have 23,000 human genes in our human genome, and there's over 2.5 million genes in the bacteria that live just in this small area here. 2.5 million genes. So yes, who really is in control? These guys say a lot for our health. And so I'm going to compare a beloved movie to gut bacteria. What does an optimal gut balance versus unhealthy balance look like? Everybody here seen The Lion King? This is about the third time I'm doing this, but I'm going to compare Lion King to poo. Unfortunately, the lighting's not great, but what we can see here, just barely, is that the Pride Lands at the beginning of Lion King are nice and green and lush and balanced with tons and tons of different animals. It's happy, it's healthy. There is a sense of balance, a state of balance that's occurring on the Pride Lands when the movie starts. And then sadly, Mufasa goes to his fate and gets trampled. And Simba runs off with Timon and Pumbaa. I've been watching a lot of Lion King, by the way. My daughter's favorite song is Hakuna Matata. And what happens when Simba runs off? Scar takes over. And what does Scar do? Scar and the hyenas become the kings of the Pride Lands. And the Pride Lands begin to look barren, broken down, unbalanced. Because Scar is the king. And the hyenas have ravaged the land. In the exact same way, a balanced gut microbiome is going to allow for your gut to look nice and clean and green and healthy and happy, versus a parasite that's going to take over and cause imbalance in your body. And that doesn't need to be like a protozoan parasite, it can be a bacterial parasite as well. Any imbalance can lead to a breakdown of the floor, of the gut lining, and that leads to leaky gut syndrome. And leaky gut is where we get toxins crossing into the body because holes have become apparent in the lining of the gut. And things can get in that weren't supposed to get in. Proteins from foods are able to get in. And that's why people have food sensitivities. How many people here have had food sensitivity testing done? You've probably wasted your money on that, I'm sorry. If you've had food sensitivity testing done, it just means that you have a leaky gut, because what probably came back positive on your food sensitivity test was what you were eating for the 3 months prior to that, because it's telling you that those foods are getting in. It's a leaky gut, that's the problem. So what's triggering that leaky gut may not actually be those foods. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it isn't. So what's the best way to check to see if your gut is working well, if you have a good balance? Look in the bowl. Look in the bowl before you flush. Easiest, cheapest, fastest way to do this. Ideally, you can check this between 1 and 3 times a day, if that's possible for you. Optimally, we should be sitting around a type 4. The further we deviate, the less balance there is. The next best way to check is if you're even mildly deviated from this, things can be going wrong inside. There may be some sort of imbalance, bacterial, parasitic, something along those lines. Get a stool test done. And when I say stool test, I'm not talking about our basic OHIP stool testing, because sadly, it sucks. I'm talking about the GI map stool test. So this was a 32-year-old mother who came in. She had a 14-month-old son, so obviously the stressors of finances, the stresses of a new kid, of getting this kid into daycare, which apparently you have to sign them up a year in advance right now. It's crazy. But she was dealing with a lot of stress in her life, financial stress, which has to do a lot with what our lives are like when we have a kid now. And she came into the office. She wasn't sure if she could afford our program, but she was very glad that she did invest herself into it, invest her money into a program here, because she was able to identify opportunistic bacteria that were triggering an autoimmune condition. Klebsiella pneumoniae, Prevotella copri are bacteria that were overgrowing in her gut, causing an imbalance and leading to leaky gut. But not only that, she was also dealing with a parasite. Parasitic blastocystis hominis level that was high. And these parasites like to steal nutrients away from us. When you eat food, who's going to have first dibs on that food? Your bacteria, parasites, viruses, yeast, whatever's living in your gut has first dibs. You get the leftovers. So you want to have a good balance. Because if you have a good balance, they're going to symbiotically give you what you need and give them what they need, as opposed to taking what you need. And that's what these guys do. They will take what you need. On this test as well, we noticed that her immune system was not working well. Her secretory IgA level was low. Her immune system was essentially crashed. And this is a DNA-based stool test that actually allows us to identify and quantify what's going on in your gut. If we can figure out what that balance is, we can figure out how to rebalance it naturally and use the right herbs and use the right supplements to help to fix this issue rather than guessing. We don't guess, we test. Once we were able to identify these things, she had huge changes in her health and noticed significant changes to her Hashimoto's. What's the oath that all doctors recite as they finish their med school?
Do no harm.
Do no harm. It's the first part of the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. The Hippocratic Oath was written by Hippocrates, who also said all disease begins in the gut. It's important that we keep in mind that the same doctors that recite that oath have forgotten something else that Hippocrates has said. Really sadly, I have a patient who lives in Vancouver, actually, who had come in. He was here for a talk last month or so ago. And he has ulcerative colitis and rheumatoid arthritis, both. And he was talking to his rheumatologist and his gastroenterologist because he has both, so he has both doctors. And it was the craziest thing he told me on our last meeting. He said he went to both his doctors and he said, "What diet should I be on?" And both of them said, "Your diet doesn't matter." And my head dropped. And I said, this is advice that we're getting from specialists who have forgotten that all disease does begin in the gut. They said, eat whatever you want. It's not going to affect your RA. It's not going to affect your UC. And they said, here, take Humira. Get out of my office. The third way to address the root cause of autoimmunity is community. How many people spend a lot of time on their phone every day? Do you think you're more connected with the world or less connected with the world? You spend more time with your friends or less time with your friends? Probably less. One of the things I came across in research for my book was the effect of loneliness on health and on vagus nerve activity and heart rate variability directly. And it showed that those who feel lonely, even just the perception of feeling lonely, had reduced health outcomes, had reduced heart rate variability, had reduced health. Even if you just felt lonely, you were sicker. Imagine what that means for those who really truly are alone. And if you're on your phone all day, you're probably more alone than you realize. That's why we do community workshops, because we want you to connect with people that are dealing with similar situations, that are overcoming similar situations. We want you to be able to speak one-on-one with people, look people in the eye, and actually be able to connect with them, because when you can do that, you feel connected. You feel vulnerable. You feel open. And what happens after you have a really good conversation with somebody? You feel pretty good. And that connectedness has a strong effect on your health. That's why community is so important. That's why we do these workshops. So that you can look literally to your left and to your right and say, yes, I'm open to meeting new people, to connecting, to not feeling lonely anymore. Be open to the idea that connecting with people is actually good for your health. And make a point of calling up a friend and going for a coffee, ideally King coffee, with them this week. Think of a friend, somebody you haven't talked to in a few months, even a few years, sadly. Call them up, message them, connect with them, get back in touch with them, because that's actually good for your health. It's going to have more of an effect on your life than Humira is. If you're going to hang out with people, though, be choosy. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Are they healthy? Do they eat well? Are they happy? That's awesome if they are. But be really, really choosy. Sadly, I had to disconnect from a lot of my old friends, from the friends that I was around when I became unhealthy. I've had to disconnect from people because they were negative influences on my health, on my life. And I still talk to them from time to time. I still run into them from time to time. Doesn't mean cut it off and say, you're not healthy, get out of here. I mean, choose people and spend more time with those who you strive to be like. Be choosy. Be really, really picky. Not just with your food, with your friends. I talked about becoming like a baby. Have you ever watched a baby breathe? How does a baby breathe? Purely diaphragmatic breathing. They don't even know how to use their traps for breathing. It's awesome. Watch a baby breathe. And then watch a baby laugh. This is actually really good for your health, by the way. This next one's my favorite. Laughing is amazing for your heart rate variability. It's calming, it's relaxing. When you laugh, you feel good. Do you laugh when you're being chased by a lion, tiger, dog, anybody? Oh my God. No, you don't. You laugh when you're relaxed. Force that to occur. Laugh. Go to a comedy show. One of the favorite things that me and my wife do is going out to a comedy show. And you just sit and you laugh and you feel amazing because you've sweat out all the crap and you just feel really good. Laugh. Laugh like that little kid. So, what are the top 3 ways to address autoimmunity? Address your sleep-wake cycles, which is the circadian biology. Address your gut health through your digestion. And address your community. Address the people that you spend time with. Address the way that you feel around them. Laugh with friends. These are the 3 top things that you can do to address your health.